Greetings, friends. My name is Pavel Stelmach, and I'm glad to present for you the new episode of our daily wrap-up series. Already tomorrow, Christmas Eve will be celebrated in Ukraine, and if we have a holiday, for the Russians it is a reason for a new missile strike. We already saw it on the New Year's Eve. Therefore, we expect a blow, but we are not afraid of it, because Russia's missile terror failed. Today is already January the 5th, and there was no blackout in Ukraine, which the Kremlin would have liked so much. They wanted Ukrainians to live in darkness and cold. However, our energy workers are making incredible efforts and will continue to maintain our energy system. I don't know how they do it, but they restore the supply of electricity and heat. This work should become scripts for films. After all, electricity is restored in most of the country a half of the day after massive shelling. And it's just incredible. Thanks to the help of partners, Ukraine is restoring its energy infrastructure faster than the Russians are causing damage. Even with stabilization power outages for several hours a day, the huge disaster that Russia wanted to organize for us didn't happen. Now our partners have become more active. They supply generators, transformers, and everything necessary. Therefore, we will be able to maintain some balance, albeit with stabilization power outages for several hours a day. But it will not be the huge catastrophe that Russia wanted to organize for us.
Only teamwork allows us to cope with such a situation. Just then, on November 23rd, 24th, we had the liquidation of the accident from 2 operator centers. We had 2 team working. We worked synchronously. We had an established connection. And thanks to that fact that there was teamwork. The impact that occurred on December 5th, which was not less powerful than November 23rd, the system held. We held the system, and our European colleagues did not even notice that we had an accident. No system has experienced this. There were not so many missile strikes. Our system withstood. Now the main goal is victory and stable work, stable and normal operation of the power system. We will teach our European colleagues who are used to quiet work. It doesn't work like that with us. We worked more briskly.
Therefore, Russian terror will not be the factor that will break our resistance. Currently, 85% of Ukrainians do not support territorial concessions, and this after new waves of missile terror. But Russia, in its obstinate insanity, will continue this very tactic, only happy that they are running out of missiles. But there are still Iranian drones. Our intelligence is already reporting a possible new supply of 300 pieces. However, on New Year's Eve, our air defense forces showed 100% effectiveness. So let's hope that our defenders of the sky will show their skills during the next attack too.
Зараз той час, коли усім, хто задійний у захисті неба.
Now is the time when everyone involved in the protection of the sky should be especially attentive. The Russian regime needs mobilizing emotion, something that they want to demonstrate to their country in order to continue lying that everything is going according to the plan. And our task is to give Ukraine everyday success, achievements, even small, yet victories over terrorists and terror. Each shot down drone, each shot down missile, each day with electricity for our people and minimal shadows of blackouts are exactly such victories.
Currently, Russian missiles are aimed at the Ukrainian energy industry. However, our system stands, and will stand, like every Ukrainian. Moreover, we are even making plans for our country and energy system will be like in the future. For example, the government is currently developing a new decentralized energy system. After all, nowadays many Ukrainians have their own generator or a power bank. And as a result, our energy industry and the whole of Ukraine will become less vulnerable to Russian shelling. Russia should be excluded from the UN Security Council. This is an inconvenient truth for many, but 31 years ago Russia occupied the USSR seat in the UN Security Council by passing any legal procedures set by the Charter. Therefore, we are sure that Russia is illegally occupying the seat of the USSR in the UN Security Council. Even the UN Charter itself doesn't contain the name Russian Federation. These words are missing from the Article 23 of the UN Charter, which lists the permanent members of the UN Security Council.
The Security Council shall consist of 15 members of the United Nations, the Republic of China, France, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and the United States of America shall be permanent members of the Security Council. The General Assembly shall elect 10 other members of the United States to be non-permanent members of the Security Council, due regard being specially paid, in the first instance, to the contribution of members of the United Nations to the maintenance of the international peace and security, and to the other purposes of the organization, and also to equitable geographical contribution. Article 23 of United Nations Charter.
Do you know why there is no Russia in Security Council? Because absence of any legal procedure by Russia to occupy the USSR seat in December 1991, Russia's right to join the UN in general is also doubtful. Russia doesn't meet the main criteria for UN membership. Paragraph 1 of the Article 4 of the Charter clearly states that membership in the UN is open to all peace-loving states. Russia's actions are contrary to the concept of peace-loving. 3 decades of its illegal presence in the UN have been marked by wars and seizure of other countries' territories, forceful change of internationally recognized borders, and attempts to satisfy its neo-imperial ambitions. Yes, the Russians can argue that they are supposedly successors of the USSR. However, according to the Charter, if one country disappears, then the countries that were formed on its territory must submit a new application for entry into the UN. So it was with Yugoslavia in the 1990s, so it should be with Russia now.
At the end of December, we took important official steps to strip Russia of its status of a permanent member of the UN Security Council and the UN membership in general. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs provided indisputable evidence of Russia's usurpation of the place in the Council of Security by passing the procedure defined by the UN Charter. I will say frankly, in a number of capitals, they learned with surprise about the fact of Russia's illegal presence in the Security Council. They turned a blind eye to this for 30 years. This fact was carefully hidden for 30 years.
Ukraine calls on the members of the UN to deprive Russia of its status as a permanent member of the UN Security Council and to exclude it from the UN as a whole. Ukraine has long prepared to uncover this fraud and deprive Russia of its status as a permanent member of the UN Security Council and UN as a whole. We know that this is at the beginning of an uphill battle, but we will fight because nothing is impossible.
If we talk about realities, they unfortunately are not so favorable. The expulsion of Russia as any permanent member of the UN Security Council is not provided for in the UN Charter. Perhaps somewhere the procedure for exclusion from UN membership will be prescribed, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine spoke about this in his statement. But in order to initiate this process, a decision of the UN Security Council is needed, and Russia is unlikely to initiate this process.
Currently, the majority of member states of the UN Security Council are against the exclusion of Russia, believes Maja Volmar, Vice-Chancellor at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Estonia. However, back in May, the US representative to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, noted that Russia is a permanent member of the Security Council, and she currently didn't see that changing in any way. And now American Congressman Steve Cohen and Joe Wilson have submitted a resolution to Congress calling on Joe Biden's administration to initiate the process of excluding Russia from the UN Security Council. So you just have wait a little and Russia will lose on the international stage, as it is doing now on the battlefield. Declaring war on Ukraine as Russia considers a special military operation, Putin named denazification as one of the goals. Probably he meant the destruction of Nazism in Ukraine, but as history has shown, he meant the destruction of the nation. But Nazism must first be destroyed in Russia itself. Of course, the Russians themselves will not be able to cope with this, so they must be helped. The experience of overcoming the legacy of Nazi totalitarianism should be used to change Russia, to return it to a democratic path of development, at least. It worked with the Germans, who were completely taken over by Hitler, and it can help the Russians, who were taken over by Putin. They are currently promoting the idea of a person with a Russian soul, but it is more and more like a person from the USSR. It was not for nothing that justifications for the communist totalitarian regime began in Russia, which surprisingly led to its imitation. Thus, Russia again turned into an authoritarian state and of course returned to the invading intentions of the USSR. The war against Ukraine, which is supported by the majority of Russians, proved that Russian society doesn't have enough internal resources to return to democratic path of development, as the Germans didn't have them, who wanted to believe Hitler to the last. Their faith was destroyed only by the Allied troops that entered the territory of Germany. The beginning of the rejection of Nazism was the military defeat of the Third Reich. Then there was a severe denazification, initiated not by the Germans, but by the victorious states.
Everyone in the bunker understood that the war was lost. There are no illusions there. The West has already passed sentence on Putin and his regime, but there is no rush to carry it out. They are afraid of the collapse not only of Putin personally, but of the entire Putin system of power. This will lead to unrest in Russia, a civil war for many years.
Moreover, nowadays more and more people in the pro-government circles of Russia understand that the started war is at the beginning of the end of their stay in power, and possibly the entire country. Therefore, they are preparing to leave, but they are afraid to be the first. After all, if it is too early to hand over Putin, then you can be imprisoned, and if it is too late, then there will be so much evidence against you for the international tribunal that you will not be able to escape too. According to Russian political analyst Olga Kurnosova, 80% of Putin's entourage want to leave their positions, but do not know how to protect themselves.
Если Россия действительно будет...
If Russia changes significantly, that is, if deputinization, denazification, demilitarization takes place in Russia and efforts are made to bury this consciousness in the grave where it belongs, then relations with Russia will probably gradually improve.
Nowadays, more and more scientists are finding common features between Hitler's Germany and Putin's Russia, and more experts rightly believe that they will end in the same way, with a great defeat in the war that they started. Therefore, we now live in interesting historical times, which we will tell our grandchildren about. So, is it not worth helping to overthrow the world dictator who thinks that the world will dance to his tune? This question is rhetorical. That concludes our today's video. Thank you very much for watching and stay tuned for future videos. Goodbye.